So it's been a minute since I've seen y'all. How weird and crazy. I'm really cozied up today because I had such a long day. I waited till the end of my Saturday to make all of my posts for the day. So I was just like sitting on my couch for the past 2 hours making posts and engaging, because you can't just make a post and ghost. You gotta engage with the peoples. That's how it is. Content creation 101 2024. But so that's what I was doing. So I just had to like wrap myself up. And actually, before I do that, let me show you my dress. I had this really cute dress on today, and I really liked the color of it because it was giving very like springtime. It was giving very like warmer weather. And this is one of my favorite dresses because it just feels like a giant onesie. If a onesie could be a dress, you feel my neural spices. I see you. But yeah, I'm gonna try my best not to yell in this mic because I'm this stage actress in me. But yeah, I'm back. I've been gone for a while because life has been lifing, and your girl was filming a TV show. Yeah, I filmed my first TV show with my first co-star role, which is exciting. So that's what I've been doing, and auditioning like crazy as you do. But I'm here to have some uncomfy conversations that we can make comfy, right? Because that's what we're here for. So I, like many of you, this is going too fast. Sorry, let me fix the teleprompter, girl. Let me fix the teleprompter. Ready to rock and roll. So I, like many of you, have been rotting in front of my screen, binging Love is Blind for the past week and a half with all of the analyses, with all of the think pieces and mini novels out there. And I've learned one essential thing. People are desperate for love. And not only love, but specifically romantic love. People are willing to do the most vile, unbecoming, embarrassing, wicked, and self-hating things in order to be called someone's boyfriend, someone's girlfriend, wife, husband, or partner. Love is a hot topic right now, and love is a billion-dollar industry, okay? And in case you're a homie who doesn't know, it's okay, I'm here for you, girl. Sensitivities is a TikToker who's like 50, I believe, 50-part series about someone she married who ended up being a scammer of the scammers, darling. And she just shared her story, and because she was so crafty and such a good storyteller, it took off and went viral, like playing in public, like hair salons, playing all over on the news. I think she's getting like a Netflix special. Just lots of crazy things are happening because of Miss Sensitivities and her story. And what that shows to me, along with like all these different reality shows about love, is that something about romantic love and the pursuit of romantic love, which I think is also a pursuit for belonging, really resonates with everybody, or with a lot of people, because there are people who are aromantic, there are people who are ace. I see y'all. A lot of people are deeply invested in romance. Not everybody, but a lot of people are. Now, once I realized this, I knew I had to talk about it on here. So, typically what I like to do in this podcast is use my Black neurodivergent perspective to talk about wellness concepts. The concept we're diving into today is insecurity. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of online criticism of insecurity in people. Granted, the internet is arguably not kind to anyone, but I've seen a shift lately, a very potent shift. We don't like insecure people. It seems like people would rather spend time around someone who appears to be confident than someone who appears to have insecurities. And maybe it's because someone being insecure makes us feel like we're watching ourselves be insecure, if that makes sense. People like spending time around someone who is aspirational. Not me over here acting like I have an anthropology degree. But anyway, when it comes to dating, confidence definitely comes in handy. If you're interested in someone and you're more likely to approach that person, even if they may seem, quote, out of your league, whatever that means, then your odds are better than someone who isn't willing to come up to a stranger or to somebody who they're interested in at all. Just by probability, just by, numbers. And when it comes to confidence, even looking at celebrity fandoms generally, fans are drawn to those who have more of a, laissez-faire attitude, a chill, cool aesthetic or an attitude that shows a tough, I don't care what you think about me kind of attitude. That kind of exterior, then the I don't know how I ended up being famous, fish out of water, theater person kind of energy. That's no shade, because I'm a theater girly, so that's no shade. But what I think is interesting about this is the fact that this bias only seems to appeal to women. Now look, I am no neurologist, but I think, okay, that insecurity in dating actually spurs from observing a lack of accountability in the dating space. Now hold it. Don't stuff me in a locker quite yet. Insecurity doesn't just spur out of nowhere, pigeons, okay? I happen to feel, in my humble opinion, that not only does insecurity breed resentment and fear, but it also is caused by resentment and fear. Now, as a woman who dates men, I'm not going to go too into detail because I just don't have to, but I think that what I've been observing over the past, hot 3-4 years is women expecting more out of the men that they date. Within that, standard raising comes a lot of resentment. And I think that resentment stems from witnessing, people you care about get hurt by men, or, just people you care about getting hurt, and not seeing there be a consequence for people hurting other people. And so what ends up happening is if no one, pays the price, we start to feel like it's a rigged game. We start to feel like it's just not going to pan out for us. And that's where insecurity comes from. That's where that retelling of the story in a way that proves our already existent biases comes into play, right? Because I feel like everybody has their own bias about themselves, some positive, some negative, and I think healthy people have a mix of both. I think that people who only have positive biases about themselves are in for rude awakenings and probably don't handle criticism very well, and people who have extremely negative biases of themselves and very rarely see the positive attributes that they have, very rarely appreciate them, are also not set up for a fun ride, because any form of rejection can crush them. I think I've got off track again because I forgot what I was talking about. Lord. This is why I should write better outlines, y'all. I'm working on it. But basically, a lot of insecure people, I think, over a long period of time, experiencing rejection over and over again and not, mending the wound afterward, can fall victim to the wiles of people who have that extremely positive bias towards themselves. You very rarely see the fault in themselves, and if they do see the fault in themselves, refuse to acknowledge those faults, especially when it arrives in the form of criticism. I feel like I've realized in my 20 plus years upon this floating rock that someone being wildly insecure or seeming like have a extremely low level of self-esteem, and someone who seems to never address their faults or never acknowledge their faults often are two sides of the same coin. Often both of these people suffer deeply from insecurity and manage them in completely different ways, or should I say mismanage them in completely different ways. Now, when it comes to autism, if you don't know, I typically talk about autism on here in relation to wellness. In fact, that's pretty much the only reason why I started this podcast. But as an autistic person, and as someone who's in community with a lot of autistic people, I've observed and I've, done the reading on a pathology that makes it difficult for autistic people to receive rejection. And a big part of that is autistic people tend to have an all or nothing kind of mentality. It's really difficult for us to see ourselves as good, capable people and at the same time see ourselves as flawed people. It's hard for us to see ourselves as people who are deserving of care, deserving of love and of affection, at the same time seeing ourselves as individuals who have a lot to work on. I think a lot of us fluctuate between thinking we're infallible and thinking that we are the scum of the earth. for lack of a better term, just not thinking very kind things about ourselves, just not thinking, very sparkly, shiny things about who we are as humans in the world and the role that we play in this universe, right? Especially when you factor in the fact that the universe tends to not be very kind to autistic people. A lot of autistic people suffer from isolation, ostracization, public scrutiny, shaming, bullying, and trigger warning, sometimes abusive situations. A lot of the time abusive situations, actually, because statistically, autistic people are more likely than anybody else to be partnered with abusive people or, to be in toxic relationships. And that kind of stuff takes a toll over time, And even more so, a lot of us become really sensitive to having made mistakes. I think a lot of autistic people are over-policed when they're children. They have to say the right thing. They have to use the right gestures. They have to make the right facial expressions to survive in social environments. They have to use the right tone of voice. They can't be too excited about anything, because otherwise they're going to get in trouble, or they're going to get detention, or they're going to get time out. They can't be overtly angry about anything. And if they are overtly angry, they have to know exactly how to articulate that. Something that I think is fairly common autistic experience is being able to articulate how you feel extremely early, or finding it extremely difficult to articulate your feelings. I was always on the former end of the spectrum. I was always someone who could articulate exactly how I felt at any given moment. I think that's a huge testament to my parents. I think that's a huge testament to the kind of people that they were when they were raising me. And I think that's a testament too to being exposed to so much art so early on in life, because art actually does help you empathize. Like, it is, proven to, scientifically proven to help children empathize, to help children understand how to relate to the people around them. That was a really big part of my toolbox at an early age. But just because you're able to articulate your feelings early on in life doesn't mean that you are able to process them. Processing feelings is not the same thing as naming them like you're studying for a test. But yeah, I think a lot of us realize this eventually, that knowing what you're feeling isn't the same thing as processing and letting yourself feel those feelings all the way through. But I think for this reason, a lot of us tend to seem very mature or seem very self-aware early, because we have to be, because if we're not, then the world will punish us. Yes. But since we have to police our feelings to that degree, a lot of us, we develop a sense of self-checking all the time, always watching ourselves live life to make sure that we're doing it correctly. And then we become hyper vigilant, and we become overly concerned with how we come across to people, because for a long time that was how we survived. When those tools aren't useful to you anymore, when you're trying to forge your own life and be someone who is confident in themselves and knows how to say no, those tools of people pleasing, I like to call them, those tools of making other people comfortable don't help you, don't are not the flex that we used to think that they were. And it becomes a habit that we have to unlearn. Having boundaries becomes a muscle that we may take our entire lifetimes to develop. Now, when it comes to receiving rejection and that turning into trauma, something that busted this case wide open for me is this. I like a study here and there. The harmful consequences of poor social support and the protective effects of good social support in mental illness have been well documented over time, babes. Believe you me. Social support may moderate genetic and environmental vulnerabilities and lower stress, possibly via its effects to, the HPA system for short, the central oxytocin pathways, and other neurological functions, because I can't pronounce them all. This is an excerpt from the National Library of Medicine. So the main difference between a healed person and an unhealed person is their community. Let me say that again for the homies in the back. A person with a strong emotionally literate community can experience the same trauma as someone who does not have that, and in fact heal faster or more effectively because of that. I know. Now, I used to be insecure about being single and, back to dating, because this is what we started talking about, right? Until I realized that being single wasn't actually an insecurity of mine. Like, it wasn't from me. That wasn't from Shemaya. It was actually an insecurity that was thrust upon me. It didn't belong to me. It belonged to somebody else. Now, this is the part of the episode where I low-key was considering making the rest of it for the patrons. Like, I was like, maybe they don't need to know this. And maybe part of it will be for the patrons. But I'm just gonna, I guess, spill my guts. I guess I'm just gonna let her rip and be transparent, and I'll edit out what I need to. Because I'm just, I just need to say my piece. I just need to speak my truth on this. I just need to speak it today on this day. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to go right on ahead and say, I know it's supposed to be girl power, girl boss. We don't need no man. I know it's 2024 and that's what I'm supposed to feel. But when everyone around you is getting engaged and, God forbid, having children, God forbid, it really does, you start to see a trend, right? You start to see a trend. Like you have eyes. You have eyes. So you see the trend, right? Like, I get it. It's 2024, girl boss. I get it. Girl boss. But I wasn't always at peace with being single. And I know it really is tale as old as time. It really is. And nobody wants to hear that part of the story, right? Nobody wants to be honest about that. But when I think about it, as someone who has never been in a relationship before, as someone who doesn't have a ton of experience dating and never has, was kind of a late bloomer when it comes to that kind of thing. The truth is, I can honestly say that I'm glad that I've been single for this long. To be honest, that what I mentioned earlier in this episode about autism and the likeliness that I would have been in an abusive or manipulative or extremely toxic relationship in my lifetime because I'm autistic gives me a sense of relief almost. Because let me tell you, your girl, it took a long time for me to be able to tell anybody no. To say the word no and to not feel like the bad guy by saying the word no. And to do things because I wanted to rather than because I felt obligated to. It took me a long time to get there, and I can imagine the trouble I would have been in. I can imagine the dangerous situations I would have been in had I been in a relationship before this point. Your girl probably would have been on Dateline. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Your girl probably would have been a Netflix special, and not the good kind, the true crime kind. Another thing that makes me feel glad that I've been single for this long is the fact that I thoroughly enjoy my own company. I love hanging out with me. I'm a good time. I'm a riot. Let me be very clear. I also love my friends. I love hanging out with my friends. My friends and I do this game night thing at the spot in Chicago that I really like. And I love those nights. I love those people. They are a huge part of my life. They're a huge reason why I feel so confident in who I am now. But at the end of the day, I have myself. At the end of the day, I came into this world with me and I will come out of this world with me. And I can't take anybody with me. And that is not something that scares me at all. At all. And I think the more time I've been single, the more I've been able to think about, okay, so Shemaya, what if you don't find a person? What if you never find your person? And I think something that I can say that most people can't is that I'm okay with that. I think most people envision another half, quote unquote. I think most people envision partnership. Though I do desire partnership, though I do pursue it and welcome it, it is not my end all be all. It is not the reason why I am on earth. And I truly don't think that many people can say that. And I consider that frankly, to be a gift. I consider that to be a positive characteristic and something that will be extremely useful to me. It's not always been this shiny of a journey. Like there were periods of time where I felt like I didn't want to be perceived by men at all. Like I would wake up and I'd be like, I would love to be invisible to a man today. I would love to just be able to walk through the world as myself and to not feel a man's gaze at all. There were days where I felt like that. But I think I realized too that like when I was feeling those things, part of it is just the world that we live in. But another part of the puzzle was needing to affirm to myself and for myself that I would be me and I would be dedicated, that I would be fervently devoted to being myself and to not letting anything or anyone shake that ever. And, regardless of how somebody would treat me, regardless of how relationships would go, romantic or platonic, that I would fight for the love that I have for myself. That it would be something that I would have to fight for every day. And in the midst of, rejection, in the midst of trauma, that I would fight for that love. And that would be the most important love that I would ever fight for. Because, you hear people, and I'm going off script now. Like I had a whole outline, some of the things I'm just not going to end up getting to because I don't think they're as important as what I'm about to say. But many people fight for love, or many people believe in love that is, quote, worth fighting for. We have these valiant images of, we have these grand images of what romance is supposed to be and what romantic love is supposed to be and supposed to look like, it's supposed to feel like, it's supposed to be epic, right? It's supposed to feel like it can go to the ends of the earth and conquer battles and climb mountains and win wars. That's what love is supposed to do. But I think the only kind of love that can actually do that is the love that you have for yourself. I think that the love you have for yourself can actually move mountains. Not negating the value of compassion, right? Because that's huge. But I think, how do I explain this? I think when you already love yourself, you don't seek validation from other people. When you truly love yourself and know what you have and know what you bring to the table, you move naturally with compassion. You aren't seeking to suck the energy out of somebody else or to hoard resources from other people. When you know you have intrinsic value without other stuff attached to you, without the things that without your gifts, without your talents, without what you have in your bank account, when you know you have value without all that extra stuff, I think you give space to be more invested in pouring into other people than you would otherwise. Because I think people, more than they would admit, spend an enormous amount of energy quenching their own thirst. And when you spend an enormous amount of energy trying to quench your own thirst, which is unquenchable if you try to do it from external factors, then you have nothing left to pour into somebody else. Now, this might seem counterproductive because we all know that notorious phrase, you can't love anyone else if you don't love yourself. Wait, no, actually that's exactly what that phrase means. See, y'all, I can't do idioms. That's exactly what that phrase means. Okay, that's literally what that means. I think I just figured out what that means. No, it's good, it's fine. But I also don't think that it's impossible for other people to love you if you don't love yourself. I've said this before. There are so many people who loved me back to life when I wasn't strong enough to. And I think that we need to remember that we are not doing this alone, that we shouldn't be doing this alone, right? Okay, Shemaya, back to the notes, girl, back to the notes. So, things I had to remember as I get cozier in this blanket because I just got chilly. 1, say what you deserve out loud until you believe it. You got to say it over and over again. You got to yell it. You got to make it echo inside of you until you genuinely believe that you deserve good things. 2, someone mistreating you is not a reflection of you. It's often a reflection of them. 3, time is not an apology. Time passing doesn't mean that somebody has felt remorse for harming you. 4, time is not necessarily growth. Sometimes time gives you the opportunity to either grow bitter and nasty and ugly on the inside, or to grow stronger. But that choice is up to you. Those are your choices. Those are your 2 choices. That's it. There's this episode of Steven Universe. Oh God, I can't even give an accurate depiction. Never mind. I'll come back to that another day because I don't even remember the characters' names and it's not gonna be useful. 5, being in a relationship is not a flex. It's not a flex. There are so many unhappy people who stay married for 20 plus years. It's not a flex. 6, insecurity can hurt people. It's not just hurting you, it can hurt other people too. I've seen insecurity come out as violence, come out as, sabotage and just as other nasty things. And it's not always victimizing you. Sometimes it's victimizing other people. Look out for that. Y'all be careful out in these streets. I forgot what number I'm on, but I'm looking at these notes and I'm like, girl, we ain't got time. We've been talking for 37 minutes. We ain't got time. Oh, I do want to talk about this one. Okay, superlatives. We kind of, as people, I think, resort to superlatives when we are looking for concrete explanation. Whereas most things and most situations and most people are neutral. People always do this to me, or people never do this for me. I don't know if any of those statements tend to be true. I think they tend to be examples of a desire for truth, or a desire to know why something has happened to you. And because you don't know why, because you can't figure it out in your little brain calculator, you have to have an answer. So you create an answer out of what you think is happening. But one of my therapists told me this. Feelings are not conclusions. Feeling rejection is not information. It's a feeling. So I would just be careful of making it mean something immediately. Like maybe all it means is life be life, and maybe all it means is things be rough and you need a candy bar. Or, oh my God, the siren. Are you for real? I'm trying to make magic here. Please don't do this to me. I was saying my piece, bro. This is what happens when I get in my soapbox. Someone just tries to knock me down, just try to cut me at the knees. This always happens. I never get what I want. The last thing I'd like to leave with you is the notion of enemies, or rather the lack thereof. So I really don't think people have enemies. I just think there are people who are going to have to miss out on your magic, and that's just going to have to be fine. That's just fine. It is fine for people to miss out on you and what you have to offer. Let them. All right, well, that's all I have for today. What a cute little time. What a cozy little sesh we just had. Join the Patreon if you like what I'm doing here. Like, share, and subscribe to this video if you agreed with anything, or if you hate my guts, still unlike it. Press that dislike button. Or, if you just like hearing me talk, thank you for being here. Leave comments below. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Thanks for being part of this community. Be blessed and stay weird. Go right on ahead and stay weird, okay? For me, thank you. All right.